The Unhappy Medium 3, Wretched Things, by T.J. Brown. Chapter 1, Rucky. The Richardsons had only been the Richardsons for 48 hours. 2 days earlier, following a breakneck engagement, they had driven away from the registry office in their hired car, tin cans trailing noisily behind them as they headed for Gatwick. By 8 that evening, after touching down at the small airport, a taxi had transported them through a Prussian blue Aegean night to their remote honeymoon villa in the hills. Too hungover and travel-worn to consummate their marriage, they'd slept like the dead, windows thrown open to the night, a feast for half the mosquitoes on the island. The following morning, they'd awoken to resemble cautionary posters from a doctor's waiting room, a mass of red bumps and bloody pimples. They were forced to squander the first day of their honeymoon searching for remedies in the confusing local pharmacies, the incomprehensible labels almost as irritating as the bites themselves. As the sun dropped, they'd scratched themselves insane by the pool, getting through 2 bottles of local wine as the evening passed, before walking down the dusty road to the local taverna. Miserably picking through their souvlaki and chips as the insects ate them alive, they took down another bottle of red before calling it a day. Then came the Rucky. Rucky, a distilled spirit of legendary potency, is omnipresent on Greece's 6,000 islands. Crystal clear and drunk in small shot glasses, it has a kick like a minotaur. Most tourists fall foul of it as an after-dinner digestif, a gratis gift from the taverna designed to lure you back every night for the length of your stay. The problem is that one small glass of Rucky has a habit of turning a heavy but manageable night of drinking into a disaster, as it was for the Richardsons. The return journey was chaotic. Unable to feel his legs, John Richardson had walked like he was on the moon, twice describing complete circles. At the same time, his bride, the fair Louise, struggled along on all fours, barking like a chihuahua. In a terrible state, they had been quite unprepared when a speeding Land Rover appeared without warning down the dusty road. As it passed, John Richardson had caught sight of its passengers, 5 or more Greek Orthodox monks who had looked back at him sternly as the 4x4 swerved hard around the drunken honeymooners. Horn blaring, it disappeared into the darkness as suddenly as it had appeared. Back in the villa, the Richardsons staggered to the bedroom, far too intoxicated to secure the doors and windows. Crashing fully dressed onto the bed, they'd both plummeted into the worst of sleep, a wild, Rucky-fueled spin cycle that had them clinging onto the bedclothes for dear life. Around 2:40 local time, John Richardson was violently sick. Brushing off a thick coat of mosquitoes, he dashed to the bathroom. Up came his dinner, followed by 2 of the 3 bottles of red and a thick jet of local Rucky. Exhausted, he'd slumped hollow to the alabaster floor, then blacked out, his strobing head balanced on a solitary toilet roll. Until he woke up. There were noises. It wasn't Louise. He could see her foot on the bed, sandal half on down the corridor. Someone, or something, was in the villa with them. He immediately assumed it was a robbery. John could hear the intruder rummaging through their possessions on the small dining table. A coin rolled. Shaking his head clear, He pulled himself up using the towel rail, then cast an eye around the darkened bathroom for a weapon. Besides towels and toiletries, there was nothing. With no better idea, Richardson rolled up a large beach towel until it became a colourful 3-foot fluffy truncheon, then edged out to confront the intruder. In the moonlight, there was just enough luminosity to reveal the outline of a man hunched over his wife's leather handbag, his torso visible as a shadow, sharp against the stark white walls. Clumsily, the intruder was ransacking Louise's bag, tipping out her lipstick, pens, and face mirror, head way down, oblivious to the Englishman creeping towards him across the kitchen diner. As one of John Richardson's hands tightened on his makeshift weapon, the other, wet with perspiration, felt for the switch. On came the light. Startled, the intruder spun. John Richardson, ready for a scrawny, unkempt youth looking for drug money, froze. Standing in the small kitchen, naked but for a pair of knee-length black cycling shorts, was a man with no head. Actually, observed the horrified honeymooner, that wasn't strictly accurate. He did have a face, it just wasn't on his head. There wasn't a head. The face, as startled and alarmed as John Richardson's, was on his chest. His stark, wide eyes were just below his clavicle, his ears to the sides of his nipples, his chin a mere lump above his sternum, and his open mouth sat somewhere in the middle. "Oh, hell," said the intruder, holding up the keys of their small red hire car. John Richardson instinctively began swatting at the apparition with the rolled-up beach towel, causing the monster to swat back defensively. "Stop it!" shrieked the headless man. "I'm not dangerous, honestly. I just need to borrow your car." "What's happening?" asked a still very drunk voice from the bedroom. "Louise, get the hell out of our villa!" screamed John Richardson as he batted the headless man. "Get out, quick!" "I'm going," replied the headless man, taking the keys and dashing at the open sliding windows, pursued by the drunken honeymooner. "I'm going!" Picking the wrong side, the headless man bounced off the toughened glass into John Richardson, sending both of them rearward into the cheap table, snapping off its single leg. Now wide awake, Louise was staggering down the corridor, beach umbrella at the ready, as the panicked intruder made a second run at the sliding window, this time selecting the open side. He, stammered John Richardson, pointing at the departing monstrosity. "What was it, darling?" asked his bride, helping him back up. "What's happened?" "Louise," replied the wide-eyed groom. "He's got no head." "What?" asked Louise. "What are you talking about? You're still drunk." "No, really," blurted her bewildered husband. "He's got no head. And he's stolen the car keys. We've got to stop him." John Richardson grabbed the umbrella of his bride, then charged through the French window. Ready for a fight, he was halfway to the car when something around the size of a pit bull dashed out of the shadows directly before him. Richardson tripped. Landing face first in the gravel, the honeymooner skidded to a dusty halt, umbrella flying. Dazed, Richardson rolled onto his back. The thing he'd tripped over was instantly on him, landing on his chest, red eyes staring into his own, claws digging into Richardson's mosquito-ravaged flesh. It was ghastly, somewhere between humanoid and canine, Straight out of a bout of sleep paralysis, its sharp fangs bared as it let out a terrifying hiss. Bad enough already. A porcupine flourish of thick bristles then shot up along its arched spine. Richardson screamed. "Get off him!" yelled Louise, picking up her husband's umbrella and swinging it. With a noisy thwack, the beast, caught by surprise, was off. Enraged, it flipped instantly back onto its feet, ready to lunge back at Mrs. Richardson with its fangs and talons fully extended. "Leave him, boy," ordered the headless man, adding a loud whistle. "We've got to go." The beast looked to its master, then slowly back at the horrified honeymooners, weighing up its next move. "Now!" yelled the headless man, frantically trying to make sense of the jumble of keys. Reluctantly, the beast backed away, dribble falling from its wicked fangs as it hissed a final defiance before bounding away towards the car. "What the gasped Louise, seeing both the intruders clearly for the first time. John followed her eyes to the car. Now there were two men. The second man, however, did have a head. It just wasn't human. Instead, he had the head of a dog. Louise, who was something of a dog person, noted with utter bewilderment that he possessed the head of a golden Labrador. "Damn it!" panted the dog man, his tongue lolling over his canines. "People!" "I'm sorry," said the headless man. "I tried to be quiet, but they caught me. I've got car keys, though. Look," he declared, jangling the key chain triumphantly. "Let's get out of here." The car beeped and the doors opened. The headless man threw himself into the driving seat, watched by the shocked couple, hand fumbling for the ignition as the dogman opened the back door. Like a family pet, the clawed nightmare was in the back as the dogman jumped into the passenger seat and slammed the door. "I've got this," said his headless companion, looking for confidence. "I've got this." The car came alive. The engine revved high, then kangarooed across the gravel as the headless man tried to implement what he'd seen on the videos. What he hadn't anticipated was the poor visibility. With his head in his chest, the unfortunate man was face to face with the steering wheel, his hands above him as he fought to balance the clutch and the accelerator with his inexperienced feet. "You have to guide me," he shouted to the dogman. "I can't see where I'm going." "Damn it," barked the dogman. "You told me you could drive." "I'm doing my best," replied the headless man, slamming his foot down. His best wasn't nearly good enough. Unguided, the cheap rental shot across the gravel and into a low wall, screeching along the rough rocks and losing a door. Slammed frantically into reverse, the car barreled backwards into a fig tree, then forward again, totally out of control, and clipped a low bank, the dogman howling in fear. The little Fiat rolled over on its side and stopped dead, wheels spinning uselessly in the air. "Get out," ordered the headless man. "We'll have to continue on foot." "Damn it," said the dogman as they extricated themselves from the wreck. "Look." His outstretched hand was pointing at an oncoming vehicle. It was, John Richardson observed, the very Land Rover that had narrowly missed them by inches earlier that evening. Headlamps blazing, it raced up to the holiday villa, then slammed on the brakes. Dust erupted around it as the doors burst open. Terrified, the three oddballs bolted, making a final, desperate bid for freedom. "Stop!" demanded the first of 6 Greek Orthodox monks, exploding from the Land Rover and waving a taser above his head. "Or I'll have to use force." "Damn you all!" barked the dogman as he was rugby tackled to the ground by a young beardless priest. "I deserve to be free." The red-eyed creature, meanwhile, was dashing about like a cornered cat, hissing as 3 monks tried to surround it, net at the ready, its bizarre hackles raised up like knitting needles. "Watch him, men," ordered the taser-yielding priest. "He has a wicked bite." "It's not fair," wailed the headless man, raising his hands above his chest in surrender. "Why can't we be free?" "It's impossible," replied an elderly priest. "You know that. Come along now, please. You have to go to the new place." "But I don't want to go," the headless man protested, as the monks finally caught his red-eyed companion in their net. "It's cold and it's wet. This is my home." "What's happening?" demanded John Richardson. "What are these things?" "You see what you do?" said the elderly priest to the headless man, pointing at the bewildered honeymooners. "You see what your freedom has caused? Now we have an unholy mess to clear up." "Whatever," replied the headless man defiantly. Making a last bid for freedom, he bolted, frantically dashing away down the path towards the village. A taser caught him, causing the poor thing to stop dead in the road, arms waving pathetically as the voltage sent him into a frenzy. "Freedom!" "Quick, men," ordered the old priest, detaching the weapon from its victim. "Put him in the back with the others." "My God!" shrieked John Richardson, pulling his wife to him. "What just happened here?" "Nothing," said the priest, walking up to the honeymooners with his finger raised. "You see, nothing." "But those things!" squealed Louise Richardson, pointing at the car. "You no see," continued the priest, smiling politely. "You see nothing." "We know what we saw," insisted John Richardson. "With our own eyes," added Louise Richardson. "Our own eyes. Those things." "No, no, no," insisted the priest. "You think you saw." But, stammered John Richardson, gaslit to a standstill. "All packed up, Father Papadrelu," shouted the driver of the Land Rover. "We're ready to roll." The priest smiled politely at the honeymooners, then turned, walking quickly back to the Land Rover. Climbing into the passenger seat, he closed the door, then poked his excessively bearded face back out of the open window, finger held to his lips. "How?" demanded John Richardson, pointing to the crazed eyes in the back of the Land Rover. "Do you explain?" "Rocky!" shouted the priest as they drove away into the darkness. "Rocky!" That was Chapter 1 of Wretched Things, The Unhappy Medium, Book 3, by T.J. Brown. Read by Holly Bell. Music by T.J. Brown. Available in ebook and paperback from Amazon.